Hey, what is going on, guys, and welcome back to Too Much Tech. And in today's video, we're going to be reviewing the ASUS PG259QN, otherwise known as one of the first 360Hz monitors available today. This one is a 25-inch panel with fast IPS technology, a 360Hz refresh rate, and real G-Sync. Finally, I don't know why a lot of high-end monitors have not been coming out with real G-Sync. That drives me bonkers. No idea why, but maybe they were waiting for NVIDIA to refresh it with this new G-Sync processor that is in this monitor, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But first, let's go ahead and talk about the design. So in terms of build quality, I actually think that it's pretty good. You've got a metal base for the stand with some dark gray and copper accents, as well as a plastic rest of the monitor stand, I'll say. But basically, the part that goes from the base to the back of the monitor is plastic. The stand on this monitor is really adjustable as well. You do have height, tilt, pivot, and the ability to rotate the monitor as well, which is really nice. You don't have to worry about buying a monitor arm because the stand itself is not massive. So I love the fact that it doesn't come out at you quite a bit because it leaves room on a small desk for a large mouse pad. There is a light up ASUS logo on the back of the monitor as well on the right side, and it looks okay. It's not necessarily the brightest that I'll say. I do wish that it was quite a bit brighter and a little bit more noticeable because you can barely see it. You can configure the color and everything inside the on-screen display on the monitor, but don't be surprised if you don't notice it because I barely did. I had to really look for it. In terms of the port selection, there is one HDMI 2.0, one DisplayPort 1.4, a headphone jack, as well as two USB 3.0s with pass-through, of course. Now let's go ahead and get into the goodies. So for the display, let's read off the specs. There's a lot of them. It supports HDR10, it's 24.5 inches big at 1080p resolution, 360 Hz fast IPS technology with a real NVIDIA G-Sync controller, actually one of their new G-Sync modules that supports FreeSync as well, and this monitor does have a 1 millisecond response time. For the majority of my review, I use the G-Sync esports mode. Say that 10 times fast, I dare you. If I was to use something else, I would probably just use the scenery mode and crank the brightness up as much as I can. But I'll talk about the color on the monitor real quick because the color reproduction on it is actually really good. I can't recall the exact number for the color accuracy, but it does look very close to my $1,000 MSI 5K monitor that I use on a regular basis. Like, you can create content on this monitor with no issues at all. So if you do need to have one monitor that is really good in a competitive setting for gaming, as well as color accurate enough to do some really color dependent content creation, you can use this monitor, no problem. Now let's talk about the 360 Hz performance because I won't make you guys wait any longer and I don't want to make this review too long. So 360 Hz performance is really good. Recently I've been playing a lot of Rogue Company. There's a trick you can do also to uncap the frame rate as well because by default it's capped at 150. So for the overdrive mode, you want to have it set to normal because if you use off or you use extreme, it's either not feeding enough voltage to the monitor or feeding too much voltage to the monitor, and it doesn't look right. If you use it on off, the blur is not good, and the input delay is not very good either. Like, it's usable. It's probably a little bit better than like your average 144 Hz monitor, but it could be better. And since the normal overdrive mode works so well, there's no reason to ever turn it to off. Then on the other hand, the extreme mode, there's just too much motion blur. It's not even worth using, and the input delay is not significant enough to give you a competitive advantage in game in terms of having the better response time compared to clarity that you get because you need to see your targets. And with this monitor running so fast that on average it's about 13-ish milliseconds faster than running your monitor at 240 Hz, you just use the normal response time. You'll be good. This monitor does also feature NVIDIA ultra low motion blur technology, which basically just reduces the amount of motion blur that you'll have in a standard overdrive mode. And unfortunately, the problem with that is that it cuts your brightness down to about 1/3, and then it also introduces like this little bit of a corona effect, which it isn't really that bad because for the most part, it is super clear. Like, this is the clearest mode on this monitor in terms of like the response time, but just the peak brightness alone is in itself enough issue not to use it. And the fact that it's capped at 240 Hz is another reason not to use it. So that mode is probably going to be good for like if you want to play like a story game or something that you know 110% for sure is not going to be running above 240 hertz, which is most games. But honestly, I would rather just turn my brightness down a little bit if I thought that the monitor wasn't bright enough, instead of using the black frame insertion mode that ASUS and NVIDIA have come up with for this approach, because it's just not worth it. You can't really see much. This mode also does introduce some backlight strobing as well, so if you're really sensitive to that, then I would just steer clear of that mode entirely because you won't have a good experience with it. But personally, I could barely tell that the backlight was strobing, so it has gotten much better than it was previously on the PG259QN, I believe it was. The HDR effect on this monitor, it's okay, it's not the best. Like what I noticed, it just seems like everything is just a little bit brighter. Not really the most contrasty, I'll say, but everything just seems a little bit brighter. So I don't really think it's worth using. I would just use the standard color modes without the HDR. Now personally, do I think that going to 360 hertz for almost double of what most IPS 240 hertz monitors are nowadays, you know, ranging between $350 to about $400 for like the Alienware 25-inch IPS monitor, to a 27-inch for about $100 more, at about $450 to $480. And then, you know, you got all of the BenQ options around like the $500 and $600 range. So for the extra 120 hertz, is the realistic performance worth it? It really just depends on what you play. So if you play a lot of CSGO or Fortnite or anything that is like a very not intensive game on your processor and graphics card, and something that you're able to turn those settings down and get those really high FPS, it is smoother than 240 hertz. I'm not going to tell you that it's not smoother. I'm not going to tell you that it's not worth it to get, because for some people, if you play at a really high competitive level, it may be worth it because it is that much smoother. You can see that much more information just a little bit faster, and that could be the difference between you winning and losing a gunfight, is those few milliseconds, because that's what it comes down to, is a few milliseconds. But for the average person that does not have a high-end CPU, not have a high-end GPU, and is not playing competitive games, I can't really tell you that this is worth it. Like, there are other options that are better. Even for me personally, I'm looking for, you know, higher resolution and high refresh rate, and this doesn't really offer that. It is only 25 inches though, so 1080p is a good resolution for the screen size. If it was any bigger, I would like 1440p, but that is really far off. We're probably not gonna see that for 4 years or so. And graphics cards haven't really caught up to be able to push higher resolutions that high anyways. So this is gonna be a purely gaming machine for competitive players, but it also provides a really good experience in AAA titles that you can lower the refresh rate on the monitor and crank up those settings and still get a great experience. Do I think it's worth $700? Yes, for the wannabe esports pro or actual esports pro, absolutely. But if you're just like playing around with your friends, you don't take games too seriously, you don't play a lot of competitive games, you play a lot of AAA games, this monitor is not going to be worth it for you. You can buy better monitors for the same price, or a little bit less or a little bit more, that will give you a better experience for something like single player games or even multiplayer games if you're looking for a little bit more luxurious experience that isn't 100% focused on speed. But one thing I do want to mention about this monitor before I end this video, this monitor is $700, and that's not necessarily cheap. Like, that's really expensive for a 1080p monitor, but I think the other options that are coming out really soon are actually going to be more expensive, like the Acer Predator as well as the Alienware monitor. I think those are going to be starting at around $800 or $900 or even $1,000, and I'm sure they're going to start to creep up in price. And with the nature of everything being sold out right now, like this monitor you can't buy currently. It's sold out pretty much everywhere, and you can hardly find a pre-order for the next restock right now. So if you find it and you are interested in it and you see it in stock, you should probably buy it and try it out for yourself, because you won't be disappointed with the performance, but you just got to make sure that you have a rig powerful enough to drive this. I would say bare minimum, at least a 2070 Super and higher, and you need like a really fast processor with great single core speed, so something like Intel 10600K or something to that extent. But that's gonna be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. If you guys are new, I'll leave some links to this monitor in the description below, so if you guys are interested in checking it out, hopefully it's in stock by the time you check it. But that's gonna be it. join my Discord if you guys want to see my specific monitor settings for this one. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for tuning in.